Hi there. In this video, I'm going to walk you through Ollama. So first off, what is Ollama? Ollama is a way to install and run LLMs locally on your own machine, natively run in their cloud. Ollama runs fully on your own hardware. What this gives you is it means that all of your messages, any secret tokens or stuff that you give it, stays within your machine alone. Nothing goes back to big companies, so you can feel a bit safer and more secure with where your data is going. Now, with this in mind, let's first walk through how to install Ollama. If you have super user privileges, you can simply install Ollama by going to their website and then just copying and running their curl command. This is assuming you use Linux. I'll provide some instructions for Windows and Mac in the comments. Now, if you wanted to install Ollama on a machine where you don't have root privileges, I'll be showing you an installation method for that. So we're just going to go to their GitHub, and you'll notice on the right side we have the releases folder. So let's go there, open up the releases, and we are simply going to install this Ollama Linux AMD64.tar.zst. All right, now that that has been installed, I'm just going to open up a terminal. In case you don't know how to use this on Linux, you can typically type Control-Alt-T all together in one click, and that'll open up a terminal. So from here, ls, I'm going to navigate into my downloads folder, and here you can see the ZST that we installed. I'm just going to run tar-xf with the CST to extract it. And once it's extracted, if we run ls again, you should see we've got this bin and this lib folder. So in my case, I don't want to populate my downloads folder with these, so I'm going to create a folder just for Ollama in my root directory. Now I'm going to move both the bin folder and the root folder into this new Ollama folder. You don't really need to worry too much about what's in these folders. We're just going to go into the bin folder. You see we've got this Ollama file. I'm going to clear my shell. And if we do /Ollama, you can see that it gives a few options. So I'm going to say chat with the model. It gives you a few recommended models. It tells you if they're downloaded or not. It's a pretty comfortable interface. So let's go with Gemma 4. As you can see, this is a 12 gigabyte model. Before you choose to run a model, I'd say check to see if it fits in your GPU's VRAM. Now, if it doesn't fit in the VRAM, Ollama will natively use your CPU's RAM and kind of stripe your model across your GPU and your CPU. But generally, I would not recommend this, as using both the GPU and CPU tends to reduce your throughput by quite a bit. So if you can, select a model that fits entirely within your VRAM so that you'll have the smoothest performance. So I'm going to go ahead and select Gemma 4. It'll ask to download. I'll say yes. Now that our model is done downloading, you can see that it gives this prompt to send a message. So if I just say, hi, how are you? You can see that the model replies. Now, before I show you more about this model, I'm actually going to exit so that I can show you ChatGPT and we can draw some differences between what ChatGPT offers you and the base functionality that Ollama provides on its own. So for now, I'm going to do a /exit and Control-C, and that ends that interface, and I'll see you in ChatGPT. So now that we're in ChatGPT, I think there are a few things that we need to address. And the first is that ChatGPT doesn't involve just a model, right? There are many things you get with the ChatGPT interface that you won't get with just the bare bones Ollama interface. One of those is memory. So I can ask it, hi, what are the local LLMs that I have been interested in? And if I ask it this, it pulls up a full list of LLMs that I've been looking into. Now, on with base Ollama, you don't get this. So each time you talk to an Ollama model, it's almost starting from scratch. It doesn't have any context of past conversations you've had with it. Additionally, I can ask it questions that require web search or access to the internet in general. I can ask it, hi, what are the current strongest World Cup teams? Since the World Cup is going on right now. And it can think, it can search on the web, it gets the current date, and yeah, it gives me a list. It even updates me with the points and the different groups so far in this clean table. So you can see not only can it search the web, it can even do graphical interfaces like this that Ollama can't do. And you might ask yourself, well, if Ollama can't do all these things, why would I use it over ChatGPT, for example? Is privacy really that big a deal that I'd give up all these features? And the fact of the matter is that in Ollama, sure, you don't get that in the base, but through this set of videos, we're going to introduce you to a set of other tools that you can combine with Ollama to provide you with the same functionality you'd have with ChatGPT, as well as more functionality that you wouldn't find in ChatGPT because you can give it privileged access to your computer itself. So I'll see you back in Ollama just to show that these nice things that we have in ChatGPT aren't there in our base interface. So now that I'm back in Ollama, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to split this terminal, since I'd like a few different panes to show a few different things at the same time. So to do that, all you need to do is run the tmux command. It should be installed if you're using Linux. If not, you can install it through apt-get. So if I run tmux, you can see that down here, it's just got this green dash bar showing that indeed we are now in a tmux session. From here, if you do Control B and then Shift 5, which is the percent command, it will create a horizontal split. Now, if I want to go to the left side, I can do Control B and then left, and that'll shift me over to this left pane. From here, I'm going to do Control B and the quotation marks sign, and that gives me a vertical split. So this gives me 3 different windows to work with. You might wonder, why do I want 3 windows? Well, that's because I want to monitor some things as I'm running Ollama. One of those things I want to monitor is my GPUs. So in this case, I'm going to use watch, which just says, rerun this command every 0.5 seconds. And the command I'm running is NVIDIA SMI. This just keeps track of my NVIDIA GPUs. As you can see, we have this 6 gigs of, memory being used by Ollama, which is Llama server. Now, if you were wondering, what was that 6 gigs? It's not here anymore, just because the process shut off because we left it idle. Well, that's why I have this second pane. In here, you can see that we have our Ollama binary. So what we're going to run is the same watch-n 0.5. And then we're going to take this Ollama binary, and we're just going to say PS, which is watch the processes. And here you see it shows this interface. Now, right now you don't see much, but for that, we're going to shift back to our other terminal. And in here now, we are going to run a model. And the way we're going to run it is we're going to say /Ollama run, in this case, Gemma 4 again. Now you can see on my GPU that the VRAM has spiked back up to about 7 gigs of usage, 6 gigs of those being used by Ollama. And importantly, if you check this Ollama PS window, you can see that now it shows that Gemma 4 latest is running, and it shows the size of my GPU. Now you might be wondering, if Gemma 4 is only 3.4 gigabytes, why are 6.4 gigabytes being used up? And the answer to that is we have this context window set, which is the number of pass tokens that your LLM will remember when you input a new prompt. This is to ensure that if I have a conversation with it, it remembers what we said earlier in the conversation. So the extra 3 gigs that are being used by Ollama are it's just a buffer to keep track of those 128,000 pass tokens. With that in mind, you can see that right now my GPU is not being used, it's idle, but as soon as I send a message like, "Hi, how are you?" you can see that our GPU usage goes up. It goes up to about 80%. And you'll see that as soon as this response is done, that GPU utilization drops back down to 0%. So you can actively see how your GPU is being used by this Ollama process. And you can see for now, Gemma 4 is going to be kept for 4 minutes. Every time you run a request or you run a prompt, it'll refresh this. And if you leave it idle for about 5 minutes, then it'll stop the process as to not waste your GPU memory. Now, there are a few things we noticed that ChatGPT can do which Ollama can't, and those are important to keep in mind. One of those things was memory. So if I ask it, what LLMs do I like to use? It'll do its thinking process. And see, it doesn't know anything about my needs, preferences, or budget. It doesn't know anything about, past questions I've asked in different chats. Because at its core, each Ollama session is almost individual. It has no memory, no context of past conversations you've had with it. So if I were to ask it many questions in this same session, then that would be stored in our context window, and it would remember that. But if I were to end this session, start a new one, it would have no memory of what happened in this session. Another thing is now if I ask it, "Hi, what are the current World Cup contenders?" It doesn't have access to the internet. So now, if it's running, it'll run generally. And you can see here, its information cutoff is pretty recent, so it does okay. But if I were to ask it, let's say, who won, or let's even go with, what was the score line between Norway and Senegal? I'm going to say the match yesterday. And you'll see that since it can't access the internet, it's trying to reason through it using its internal knowledge cutoff. It says you would recommend Google searching, but notice that it cannot Google search on its own. And notice that this whole interface is text-based. When we asked ChatGPT the same question, it provided us with a neat table. So here you can see a few of the different, limitations of Ollama. But like I said, as we add more tools into this whole framework, we'll see that we can get performance that is quite similar and quite comparable to that of ChatGPT, just using local models. One last consideration I'd like you to keep in mind is that when you're running a local model, you are limited by how much VRAM you have. In that case, for me, that means I'm running a model that is about 3.4 gigs in this scenario. If I wanted to, I could run a model up to about 12 gigs. But if you look at the types of models that ChatGPT and that Claude and which is Anthropic are using, those models are much, much bigger. This is about an 8 billion parameter model, I believe. And those models are, they have trillions of parameters, or at least a trillion parameters. So they're not really of the same weight class. As you go up, maybe you go to a 30 billion parameter model or 27 uh, billion parameter model. Then you get performance that is still quite competent, but generally your performance is always going to be a little bit worse than those big models. You can mitigate this with stuff like tools and giving your agent access to additional resources, and we'll show you how to do that. But it is good to keep in mind that generally you're not going to achieve performance that exactly matches or improves upon the performance achieved by the current state-of-the-art commercial providers. But in my day-to-day, I find that this slight performance difference doesn't really matter because a lot of the bigger models you get on the local side are more than competent enough to handle most of the tasks you'll want to throw at them. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. I'd recommend checking out the rest of our playlist, and yeah, see you in the next video.